everybody, welcome back to my channel. When this video is being released, it is officially opening day of the 2024 Major League Baseball season. We made it. We did it. We did the thing. Get up, cocksuckers, it's all over. We are here to predict how each team in Major League Baseball is going to finish in their respective division. I have put together some predictions. We will be ranking everybody based on first through last place. We're just gonna jump right into it. Let me know down below if you agree with my predictions or if you disagree. I feel like I might have a few hot takes here, but listen, does the season ever really go according to plan, according to the projections? Absolutely not. So maybe I'm gonna get it exactly right. Actually, I am gonna get it exactly right. Imagine if we got it exactly right. Let's go ahead and kick things off with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The middle of the NL West to me feels difficult to place. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the Diamondbacks at third place in the division. With the additions like Jock Peterson and Eugenio Suarez to this lineup, I kind of like it. I think it's a fun lineup. With the losses of Tommy Pham and Evan Longoria, I think that guys like Jock Peterson, Randall Grichuk, and Eugenio Suarez kind of fit into this lineup nicely. I do think that there is high upside with this rotation, although we did just find out that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to start the year on the IL, which is rough. There have been so many injured pitchers already, which is tough to see. I like third place for the Diamondbacks. I think it feels good. Next up, we have the Atlanta Braves. It has to be, right? I mean, I don't think that it's going to be as big of a cakewalk for them as it has been the last couple of years, but I do still think that the Braves are probably the best team in baseball right now. Somehow the Braves still got better in the offseason. I love the Chris Sale addition. I think that there's huge upside to the rotation there as long as Chris Sale can stay healthy, of course. I love Adam Duvall signing with the team. Jared Kelenic hasn't really worked out too well in spring training, but I mean, you never know. He might be able to find his feet. And I love Reynaldo Lopez. He was a halo for about 6 weeks last year, and the dude throws gas. So the lineup as a whole last year did have career seasons, really. I think there was only one player in that whole 1 through 9 that had below a 100 OPS plus, which is cracked. So I do expect a touch of regression from the lineup, but the pitching got better, so I still think that they are the best team in baseball and they should win this division. Next up, we have the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are an interesting team. They exceeded all expectations last year. They won 100 games. I mean, what a crazy season for them. I like second place for them. I think second place feels good. I don't see them quite maintaining exactly what they did last year, although they did have a decent offseason, and I think the ceiling is really high for this team. The Orioles just announced that Jackson Holliday is not going to be on the opening day roster this year, which is a little head scratching, a little confusing. I think Corbin Burns being the ace for this squad is going to be huge, especially for the young guys. My cat, I cannot. Although they did lose Jack Flaherty, Aaron Hicks, and Adam Frazier. So they did lose a few guys, but I love the addition of Corbin Burns. High 80s, low 90s feels about right for this team. I just don't know if they can match exactly what they did last season, but I like second place in the division for them. Let's talk about Boston. I mean, unfortunately, Boston is definitely going to be last place for me. They had a rough offseason. The Red Sox lost a lot in the offseason. They lost guys like Alex Verdugo, Chris Sale, Justin Turner, James Paxton, Adam Duvall. They lost a lot of guys. They did add Tyler O'Neill to this lineup, which I really like with the Green Monster, but they also added Lucas Giolito, and he is out for the year. So that was kind of their big acquisition, I think, and he will not be playing this year. I like the top of the lineup a lot, but the bottom of the lineup doesn't really speak to me much. Guys like Tristan Casas and Rafael Devers still need to perform. I think Casas is going to make good strides in 2024, but it's rough in Boston. I think 75-ish wins feels about right for this team. Okay, let's talk about the Cubs next. This is kind of a tough one for me because the NL Central is kind of an intriguing division to me. They made some interesting moves. Second place feels good for me. I hesitate putting them first. Second place feels good for me. I love the additions of Shoto Imanaga and Hector Neris. I'm very high on Imanaga this year. I think he's going to have a good year. I feel good about his first half at least. This is a really fun team. The lineup didn't change too much, which I think is great just for clubhouse vibes and just solidifying the lineup even more. These guys have been batting with each other for a long time, which is just an intangible that people don't really talk about, lineup chemistry. The rotation has a great 1-2 punch. I really like Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga following, and I'm very intrigued to see how Craig Counsell works with this team. Are we gonna see more stolen bases? Like, what's the vibe gonna be with this team? I really like around 84 wins. I think that feels like a good spot for me. Let's talk about the White Sox next. I don't really think there's much to say about the White Sox. They are definitely gonna be at the bottom of that division. What are we doing in the South Side, man? I empathize, okay? I also am a fan of a team with a shitty owner, so I get it. It's frustrating. What is the plan in Chicago? They added guys that have major league experience but are kind of underperformers. Martin Maldonado, Paul DeJong, but they lost a lot. You lost your eight. I mean, you lost Dylan Cease. I mean, that's huge. Tim Anderson did not perform last year, but that was your dude at shortstop. He's gone. Liam Hendricks is gone. Everywhere it's rough. The pitching is rough. The lineup is rough. 60 wins feels good for me. Let's talk about the Reds next. The Reds are a really interesting team, similar to Baltimore in a sense of they just have so much young talent on the field. This is tough, man. I hope people don't get angry with me about this. I'm gonna change my mind about something really quick. I'm gonna put the Cubs first. And then I'm gonna put the Reds at fourth. Although I really want to put them higher because I really like the Reds. They're a fun team. I do enjoy the few additions that the Reds made in the offseason. I think Heimer Candelario is going to do really well at Great American Ballpark. The Reds are going to be starting off the year with a few key injuries to guys like TJ Friedl and Matt McLain, which does kind of hurt the offense a bit. I'm not entirely sure how long they're supposed to be out for, but the starting pitching is kind of rough. I don't feel great about this rotation. I think Hunter Green is great, but he gets hurt a lot. Lodolo, what are we going to get out of him this year? I like maybe 79, 80 wins out of the Reds this year. I feel like it's going to be a really close race between first and fourth place. I'm going with fourth, even though I really feel like they could be as high as second place in this division. Let's talk about the Guardians next. Third place feels good for me, for the Guardians. Some of these teams did get better, but the Guardians didn't really do a whole lot of anything, which I don't know why. Why did they not do a lot? There are fun pieces in this lineup that I really enjoy, but there are certain guys that have to produce, especially in the power department, if the Guardians want to make any sort of noise. You guys know the story. The Guardians don't really have a lot of pop in their lineup. The rotation is a bit intriguing to me. I do like what they have working with in their starting rotation, but the lineup is a little lacking for me, personally. I like around 75 wins. I think that feels good for them. I mean, what did we do this offseason? You know? The Rockies are next. Another easy last place. I mean, the Rockies might be the worst team in baseball this year. Their only real acquisition that has some sort of notoriety, I guess, is Cal Quantrill. I think people know who Cal Quantrill is, but that's really the only big addition that they made. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same. You need a healthy Chris Bryant if you want to even do anything. Is he going to be healthy? I hope so. And you're in a division that just made moves up the wazoo this offseason. Every single team in the NL West made moves to get significantly better except for the Rockies. So 60 wins is going to be a stretch for me, but I'll be nice and say 60 wins. Let's talk about the Tigers next. I'm going to put the Tigers at second place. The Tigers are kind of fun to me. Maybe that's a little bit of a hot take, but they're fun. The Tigers made a lot of moves this offseason. I wouldn't say they had any incredibly notable additions, but they added a lot. I love the Gio Urshela addition to this lineup. I like Mark Canha. I like Andrew Chafin. I think they made some good moves. They lost Eduardo Rodriguez, who was really good for them last year, but I think Jack Flaherty is going to be just fine, kind of replacing him. And what are we going to get out of school this year? That's the thing. I think they have a real shot to be a 500 ball club this year. The young guys in the lineup need to perform. I think Spencer Torkelson is going to pop off. And what the fuck are we going to get out of Javi Baez? I mean, is he going to have a 750 OPS? Probably not, but he needs to do something. I like 80 wins for this team. I think 80 wins feels good. Let's talk about the Astros next. I like the Astros at second place. The Astros just don't really do it for me as much as they might have in previous years. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. They didn't really make a lot of moves this offseason, or they didn't add a ton. Not that they really need to. They're very strong in a lot of different areas. I think the addition of Josh Hader to the bullpen is going to be absolutely wild. Who the fuck wants to face Presley and then Hader? I mean, that is horrifying. It seems like the injury bug is also hitting the Astros a bit early on before the season has even started, which I think may affect things. Uriquidy is the one off the top of my head. I don't know how long he's supposed to be out for. I mean, the Astros are the Astros, so I'm probably going to be wrong. But spoiler, there's another team that I like to take the West more than the Astros this year. I think 89-90 wins feels good. This bullpen is still disgusting, and the lineup for the Astros is the lineup. So the Royals are next on my list. I feel like the middle of the AL Central can just go so many different ways. I am going to put them fourth, although I could very easily see them in third place in this division. I do like some of the offseason moves that they made. I think adding Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo is going to be great for the pitching. To be honest with you, I didn't even realize that they only won 56 games last year. They do have the largest difference between their win total in 2023 and their projected win total according to Fangraphs. Going from 56 wins to their projected 76, a 20 win difference between one season. That's a big ask. They did make moves in a weak division, which I think is good, but they are going to need production from young talent. Is Bobby Witt going to be that dude in 2024? I think he is, but what about the rest of the lineup? The lineup and the starting rotation do appear to be more solid than they were last year, but maybe not quite where they should be. I like around 70 wins for the Royals this year. Let's talk about the Halos next. I mean, yeah, I don't see them coming out of fourth place this year. I feel good about fourth, and I think this is where most people put them. I think the Ron Washington addition to the Angels is gonna be their biggest bright spot this year. I think that was the win of the offseason for them. There's a young group of guys that are really in the middle of this lineup that unfortunately are going to have big years in order for them to make any sort of noise at all. We need a healthy Mike Trout. We need a full season from Taylor Ward, and we need guys like Zach Neto, Nolan Schanuel, Logan O'Hoppe to have great years. And we need Anthony Rendon to be on the field. You're in a tough division with not a lot of expectations. I personally need a Mike Trout MVP season like I need air. They really bolstered their bullpen this year, although it's still not that great of a bullpen, and you lost Shohei, so 72 wins feels good for me. If you guys are interested in my Angels team preview, I do have a video on that. I'll put a link somewhere around here, but I don't want to get too much into the Angels because, well, what is there to talk about? Next, let's talk about the Dodgers. I do think that the Dodgers are going to win the division. I don't really think that there's any sort of debate about that. They should win the division with the roster that they have. They had an incredible offseason. Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, they had a fantastic offseason. They made a lot of really good additions. Now we have this crazy Shohei Ohtani Ippei gambling issue. Is that going to put a dark cloud over this franchise for a bit? I don't really know. It's kind of hard to say. Their 1 through 3 is pretty disgusting, but we did just watch Yamamoto get absolutely shelled in Seoul. So if he can speed up his transition process, they have the potential to be the best rotation in baseball. We do need good seasons out of Miller and Buehler, though, as I think most people know. But they made a lot of moves, but the rest of their division did as well. So I don't really think that 100 wins is in the cards for them. I like maybe 95, 96 wins. That feels good for me. But I do feel like they still win this division. Let's talk about Miami. I think fourth place for Miami feels good. I think that they're better than the Nationals, but I do not think they are as good as the Braves, Phillies, or Mets. So fourth place feels good for me. They didn't do a ton in the offseason. They did add Trey Mancini and Tim Anderson to their roster. What are we going to get out of TA this year? Are we going to go back to 2021, 2022 TA? Are we going to get 2023 TA again? No hitter in this current lineup is projected to have an OPS over 800 according to RotoChamp. Where's your power going to come from? Jake Burger, Josh Bell have to have good seasons this year. Is Luis Arraez going to be who he was last year? You don't get Sandy Alcantara this year, and you're starting the year off with more injuries to your starting rotation with Yuri Perez and Braxton Garrett. So it puts the rotation in a tough spot. I think 75, 76 wins is probably going to be where they're at. I like the Brewers to place third in the NL Central. I don't think they're better than the Cardinals, and I think they're better than the Reds, so I think third place is good. I really like the addition of Rhys Hoskins to this lineup. However, losing Craig Counsell I think is really big for this team. You lost Corbin Burns, you lost Mark Canha, you lost Josh Donaldson. I think some regression for this team makes sense. I don't exactly hate their offseason. Jackson Chourio made the opening day roster. What are you going to get out of him this year? This is also another team that does not have a player projected to have an OPS over 800 according to RotoChamp. So I think the rotation is okay. The lineup is kind of meh to me. I think 80 to 82 wins feels about right for this team. The Twins are next. I do think that they win the AL Central this year. The more I look at their lineup and their starting rotation, I actually really like what this team has on paper. They didn't make a ton of additions to their roster, but they did lose a lot. They lost Jorge Polanco, they lost Sonny Gray, they lost Michael Taylor, but the rotation has good upside. I think the front three is really good. Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober. But one thing that we all just really need, I need a healthy Byron Buxton. So bad. I think their projected 84 wins is a good number. I like 84 wins. I think the Mets are going to be pretty good this year, and I just think that that is based off of bias from last year, bias from, I don't know, the last few seasons, I guess. The Mets are going to Met, right? I like third for them. I'm not sure if they can quite compete with Philly and Atlanta, but they might be able to make it interesting. I think they had a really good offseason. The addition of JD Martinez to this lineup, I think could potentially be really good. I think their lineup is really solid from top to bottom if you look at it from an unbiased perspective. You have a guy like Pete Alonso that is going to be going into a contract year next year, so maybe he will just continue to pop off as he always does. You need decent seasons out of Brett Beatty and Jeff McNeil though, and their bullpen is great. You're going to get Edwin Diaz back this year. I like 82 wins, and I think that that's a really good increase from what you had last season. So let's talk about the Yankees. This might be a hot take, and you probably already know where I'm going with this and probably thought, wow, you don't fucking know ball. And that's fine. I don't really care. I think the Yankees are going to take the AL East this year. And I just feel like the Yankees winning the AL East makes more sense to me than the Baltimore Orioles. Why can I not speak? The Yankees had a fantastic offseason. Obviously, Juan Soto was the big acquisition for them, but I do really like Marcus Stroman in this rotation as well. He's had a great spring. I try to not put a ton of stock into spring training, but he's had a decent spring. I like Alex Verdugo in the outfield as well. I mean, Verdugo, Judge, and Soto in your outfield, claps for you. That's pretty great. You did lose a few guys, not anybody too notable unless if you're just the biggest IKF fan I've ever met in my entire life, but it does kind of put the rotation in a tough spot when you don't have your ace, your former Cy Young, starting the year healthy. That sucks. As long as Cole not being in the rotation doesn't affect them too much, I do think that they're still going to have a strong start to the year. The offense was obviously lacking a lot in 2023, and they did make good moves to solidify it a bit more. The Yankees just need health, right? I love the top half of this lineup. 1 through 5 is really solid. What are you going to get from the bottom of the lineup? I think that you're going to need solid seasons from a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, who I actually think is also starting the year on the IL. I could be wrong about that. I like their offense a lot, and I do like their rotation quite a bit, although a few of their guys haven't had the best spring. Let's talk about the A's. There's not really a ton to say about this team. Obviously, we're going to put them in the you tried tier. What are we going to say about the A's? Everything that needs to be said has already been said so many times. I do think that the A's are going to be better this year than they were last year. I do not think that they will repeat a 50-win season. There were a few moves that they made that I do think make them better, but when the bar is so low, it's like, okay, how much better did we really get here? I like the JD Davis addition. I like the Alex Wood and the Ross Stripling additions. You lost Tony Kemp and Trevor May, but that's really about it. The team is still not great. The bullpen is actually not not the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life if you take a closer look. One guy in their lineup is projected to have an OPS over 750, and that's Brent Rooker. And I think Brent Rooker is going to regress a little bit in 2024. You need to have good seasons from Esteury Ruiz. I do like Zach Gelof. Is he going to have a good year this year? You're in a tough division. I don't see much out of this A's organization. I don't think that 60 wins is a stretch for them. Okay, the Phillies. The Phillies are a really fun team. I like the Phillies. I'm going to put them in second place in the division, although I do think that they make it interesting with the Braves this year. The Phillies did lose a few guys on their roster, including Rhys Hoskins and Michael Lorenzen. Hoskins didn't play last year, so, what did you really lose from the 2023 year? I like the Whit Merrifield addition a lot. He can play a lot of different positions for you if you have a guy go out. I don't think this team really needed to do all that much. The Phillies pitching is just out of this world. They have a great pitching staff from the rotation to the bullpen. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Taijuan Walker. I think they're going to make it tough for the Braves this year. The Braves are obviously going to just be on another level anyways. I'm not saying that they're going to win the division by like a game or two, but I don't think it's going to be a landslide. Maybe that's a hot take. You look at the 1 through 9 and it can potentially be kind of horrifying. I do think that guys like Alec Boehm and Brandon Marsh have to have decent seasons, but you have so much talent around you where they can kind of sit at like a 750 OPS and still be just fine. I also do think that Trey Turner is going to have a bounce back year this year, and that's going to help this team a lot. So let's go 90, 91, 92 wins. I do have the Pirates at the bottom of this division, and I don't really think that that's a surprise. They're just in an interesting position. They are working on the farm system. They have a few interesting names, but I think last place for them is the right fit. I like the Michael A. Taylor addition. Rowdy Tellez has the potential to be a big bat. They're obviously still not where they want to be, with the division getting better. If everyone in their bullpen can stay healthy, I think they have a great bullpen. But what are you going to get out of guys like Sawinski and Cruz? I think O'Neal Cruz is going to have a fantastic year this year. I think people are really sleeping on him after he got hurt in 2023. I think mid-70s is a good win range for them, 74, 75 wins. Let's talk about the Pods. I like the Pods in fourth, although again, the middle of this NL West division I think could be really close. I hesitantly put them at fourth, but I really think that they could take third or even second place in this division. So that's just me, might be a hot take. The Padres had a very busy offseason. They did lose quite a few big names. Obviously Juan Soto is the big one, Blake Snell is another big one, but I do like the Dylan Cease addition. I really think that Dylan Cease is going to have a good year this year, although he is in a tougher division now compared to him being in the AL Central. I like the Michael King addition. Obviously, they got a lot of pitchers from the Yankees in that Juan Soto deal. They also lost Josh Hader, who was their big bullpen piece in 2023. They used him like crazy. I think with the additions of Cease and King, their rotation can be really good. We need a bounce back year from Tatis, and I think we need Jay Cronenworth to kind of live up to his potential a bit more. We do know that Jackson Merrill is on the opening day roster, so what are we going to get out of him? He did really well in Seoul. He hit balls at 95.3 miles per hour, 98 miles per hour, 102.3 miles per hour, 105.7 miles per hour, and 106.9 miles per hour. Every time he hit the ball in play, it was a hard hit ball. He's 20 years old. I think 82 to 83 wins is good for this ball club. Okay, so we have the Giants next. I am going to put the Giants at second, which again, I really feel like you could put any of these three teams just like in any order, 2 through 4, and you have a really good shot at getting it right. I think that the San Francisco... I have to close the window. What the fuck just happened? I think that the San Francisco Giants had a very good offseason. I think they made some fantastic moves and added some really good pieces to their roster. Blake Snell is going to be the big one, obviously. What are we going to get out of the former Cy Young winner? Is he going to be able to stretch himself into more innings? Matt Chapman is a great name that they added at third base. Jorge Soler is a great addition as well. I love Jung-Hoo Lee. I'm very high on Jung-Hoo Lee this year. I think that he could be a great addition to this team. He's going to be manning center field for them. He's going to play a lot of games, get a lot of at-bats. The Giants do kind of have a stinky bullpen, so you have a guy like Blake Snell that doesn't really go past the 5th inning very often, past the 6th inning very often. How is that going to work? There hasn't been a ton of power in this lineup for the past few years, but I think Soler adds a nice punch. He is the only person that's projected to have an OPS over 800 this year, which is kind of a bummer. If he could hit like 30 bombs for them, I mean, I think that would be fantastic. I like 85-ish wins for them in 2024. The Seattle Mariners are next on my list. They are going 3rd in this division in the AL West. The Mariners are interesting. They made some interesting moves during the offseason, but their pitching, specifically their starting rotation, is pretty horrifying. The Mariners did lose guys like Teoscar Hernandez, Dominic Leone, and Eugenio Suarez, which I do think hurts them, although I feel like they replaced those 3 with essentially similar dudes. So they added Ryan Stanek to their bullpen, Jorge Polanco, and Mitch Haniger. So, I think they stayed about the same this offseason. Will Julio continue to grow? I do think so. He is the only player on this roster that is projected to have an OPS over 800. But I think you could potentially get a lot of power out of guys like Cal Raleigh, Mitch Haniger, Ty France. This rotation is nasty. The top 3 are great, but then you have high upside guys like Brian Wu and Bryce Miller in the 4 and 5 spots. They could be really, really good this year. I'm really sad that the Angels have to face this rotation like however many times a year. I do think they will sit around 85 wins this year. That feels like a good number to me. Maybe 86 wins. But the Mariners have the potential to be very, very good, especially with that starting rotation. I know that we're talking about a lot of rotations like the Dodgers or the Phillies, but the Mariners, they could have one of the best rotations in baseball. St. Louis is the next team up. I like St. Louis to sit 2nd in this division. Although I do think that they could take 1st place, and I know initially I had the Cubs in 2nd and I was going to put St. Louis at 1st, but the more I look at that Cubs roster, it just feels more fun to me. The Cardinals did add some good names to their roster, but they're all older players, which is a little bit concerning. Brandon Crawford is going to be sitting in the infield now. You have Matt Carpenter, who's back in St. Louis, Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. Like, this starting rotation would have absolutely banged like 6 years ago. But now it's like, okay, what do we get out of Lance Lynn, right? Like, he did not have a good year last year. Sonny Gray, I believe, is starting out on the IL this year, or he's on the IL now, and that's your ace, right? This team is a little on the old side. They do have a good bullpen to support this rotation, I believe, but there really is potential throughout this entire lineup. We obviously need to see Nolan Arenado get back to his Nato ways. Does Wilson Contreras continue to be a really good hitting catcher? Is Jordan Walker is he gonna stay in the major? I mean, I still can't believe he got sent down last year. But is he gonna have a good year? Tommy Edman, I think, needs to have a good year. I do think that there is a lot of bias from last season that is continuing to sit with this organization. They have the potential to go back to where they were previously from 2023. I like them sitting at 500, maybe 82 wins. They could easily get to like mid 80s. So the Rays. I think the Rays are gonna sit 3rd. I think they're going to regress quite a bit from last year, but let me explain. They lost some pretty significant pieces. Tyler Glass, I mean, he's significant. I know that he didn't give them a lot of starts last year, but Tyler Glass now, Manuel Margot, Raimel Tapia, and Robert Stevenson are all gone now, and I don't mind the additions that they made. Jake Odorizzi, Ahmed Rosario, Ryan Pepiot. The bullpen is still decent. Fangraphs has them projected to be a top 5 bullpen in baseball. Good bullpens are going to win you games. The rotation has high upside. Taj Bradley, I think, is going to be really good this year. Zach Eflin is going to be their SP1. And I just really hope and feel in my heart that this idea of a low payroll and still being good, it just dies in 2024. I don't like it. 85 wins feels good for this ball club. Maybe 86. I think that they could maybe sneak into that 2nd place. I think that they could win a wild card spot. I don't see them getting to 99 wins like they were in 2023. I just don't see it. The Rangers are next. I do have the Rangers winning the AL West this year. I'm honestly kind of shocked that there are so many people that don't think the Rangers are going to win the AL West again this year. I'm just sitting here reorganizing this. Don't mind me. Okay, that feels... Okay, I feel better now. I couldn't even look at it. Despite the Rangers losing a few guys, including Aroldis Chapman, Jordan Montgomery, Martin Perez, this 1 through 9 is just absolutely horrifying. How do you not look at this lineup and say, do I have to face them or can I just not? Because, I mean, they have to have one of the best 1 through 9 complete lineups in all of baseball. The bullpen is not great, but I do think that they have good, decent starting pitching. You are going to get Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom back probably around the All-Star break or at least the second half of the season. Wyatt Langford has officially made the opening day roster. He had a fantastic spring. We will see if it transfers into the regular season, but at this point, why not? You have an extremely heavy offense paired up with okay pitching. Obviously, last year they mashed their way into the playoffs. I do think that some of these guys really did peak last year or just had crazy seasons. Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim. Are we going to get the same or close to the same production out of them in 2024? I'm not really sure. I think so, but of course there's always the possibility of them kind of regressing a bit. But yeah, I think they take the AL West. I think they win like 90 to 92 games this year. Their lineup is so horrifying. Toronto is second to last on the list. I like 4th place. 4th place feels good for this team. The Blue Jays kind of lost a lot. They lost a lot of everyday guys on their roster, which is kind of concerning to me. I don't hate the Justin Turner, IKF, Daniel Vogelbach, Joey Votto moves. I know that they were in on a lot of players this year, but you have to get the job done with at least one of them, and they did not do that. We really need a lot of this team to have bounce back or breakout years or overachieving seasons in order for them to compete. What are we going to get out of Vladdy this year? I think Vladdy is going to be an excellent ball player this year. I think he's going to bounce back from 2023. But what about IKF? What about Alejandro Kirk? What about George Springer? I mean, all of these guys really have to have good seasons in order to compete in the AL East. I like their rotation quite a bit. Is Alek Manoah gonna figure it out? I don't think he needs to have a sub-3 ERA. I mean, that would be fantastic. But with Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett, Jose Barrios, I think that somewhere between a 3 and a 4 ERA would be good. I don't really hate any of the names 1 through 9. They're all good names, but it doesn't seem as strong to me as some of the other rosters top to bottom in the division. So I think that we're gonna see some tight races in some of these divisions this year. But 84, 85 wins feels good for me. Last but not least, I do have the Nationals sitting last, although I don't think that they're going to be as bad as everybody keeps saying they're going to be. They didn't make a ton of additions and subtractions on their team this year. Which Joey Gallo are we going to get this year? I don't think he's had the best spring training, but I could be wrong about that. They had a quiet offseason. Again, I don't expect them to make a ton of noise this year, but there are a few high upside guys. The rotation looks pretty tough. Fangraphs has them projected to be the second to worst rotation in all of baseball. Keibert Ruiz is projected to have the highest OPS on the team at 748. Not great. Again, they are just projections, but it is interesting to look at. They have some fun guys to watch this year. I am officially on the CJ Abrams bandwagon. I think he's going to be really good this year. He is also in my season-long entry. I need him to swipe 37 bags this year. So I think 70 wins would be a win for them. This is what we're working with. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. I can't wait to get roasted by each respective team's fans, but that's fine. I deserve it. You guys know more about your teams than I do, so if you think I went wrong somewhere, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, only if you really did enjoy it though, and subscribe if you haven't already if you don't want to miss any of my baseball content going into the season. I love you so much, and remember to not let sports affect your mental health. Have a fantastic day. I will talk to you soon. Bye.